What's good, ladies and gentlemen? You are listening to the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast. This is a very special episode, not your normal episode. We are on the road to Rickwood. Everybody knows Major League Baseball is sponsoring Field of Dreams, a tribute to the Negro Leagues. That is taking place June 20th at the legendary Rickwood Field. And on the road to Rickwood, we have got so many special guests. None more special right now than my man Micah Johnson. Micah, look. There's not every day that you take a former professional baseball player, and then once he hangs up the spikes, turns his passion into art, and then gets his art on the cover of Time magazine. This brother can do it all. Michael, welcome to the mixtape, my man.
What's good, man? Good. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, and the idea that we can talk about it as we lead up to Rickwood Field, tribute to the Negro Leagues game, is really special because there's so much going on. The first question I have to ask, though, and this is off the record, so be prepared. Why'd you have to do my man like that with the wiffle ball? Was it wiffle ball or stickball?
Oh,
Outside, look! Outside of Kansas City, you gave him the full Major League Baseball lefty swing treatment.
it's my first swing in 5 years, probably. To be honest with you.
It looked good. It looked like it bounced right back. That's a good question. When was the last time you picked up a ball and a bat? I was in Cooperstown this past weekend for the East-West Classic and saw a bunch of your peers, if you will, playing a full 7-inning baseball game. When was the last time you took some swings?
Years, man. Years. That was probably the first one, man. And the kid was like, "Let me get another shot at this. Let's go again." I said, "You don't get two shots at the champ, man. It don't work like that."
No, it was phenomenal, man. And it looked like you were having so much fun through the whole
Blast.
experience out in Kansas City. What you were doing is a special project with Topps. You have created 6 exclusive baseball cards for this series, and we'll go through them and we'll go through what that means for you. But talk to me about the actual beginning of this project. You're a busy man. You're extremely busy. You're traveling all over the country. What was it like to get the call from Topps and Fanatics and those guys and say, "Hey, we're thinking of this. What do you think?" How did that come about?
Well, it really came about because by happenstance, I ran into my boy Sinai at who's over at Fanatics at a art party in LA, Freeze LA in February. I believe it was. And then, he's like, "Yo, we should do something sometime." This is the first time I met him. And I just kept hounding him. I just kept, emailing him, texting him, like, "Hey, man, let me spin. Like, let me spin. Let me do something." I didn't know what we could do or what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then he called me a few weeks later in April. It was like, "Hey, we want to do this project. This is what it is, this, that, and the other." And I was like, "Let's get it." And I just went right into work mode. Like, I knew there's a few opportunities in this life where you got to capitalize on, where you have to sacrifice things away from, your work, whether that's family time, whether that's, recreation time. You got to put everything aside and go to work. And I saw this as one of those opportunities. And so for the next 3 weeks, I worked around the clock. And in the same time, I got a lot of other projects happening too that are really big projects that I was balancing. And so it was a good practice and structure. Structure brings freedom. I was able to be structured and execute on what I needed to execute on, and deliver what I needed to deliver.
Now, I'm on record saying that I thought you were the perfect artist for this program, for this series, for this project. And I say that because not every artist has had the experience that you've had, the life experience, which is being a Major League Baseball player and being a Black Major League Baseball player, to understand in some ways it's not apples to apples what those legends like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson went through. How emotional was this project for you, knowing that you are just, rendering 6 icons in the game?
Yeah, it was honestly, it was the perfect project. It was the perfect project. It taught me a lot. I did a lot of research going into it on each player because I wanted to really understand the magnitude of this project that I was working on, the significance of each player beyond just what you know from a surface level. And it was really grueling, to be honest with you, because my practice is typically around painting portraits of children, work with the astronaut helmet, and these are kind of ambiguous figures, right? Where there's no really necessity to render them perfectly, you know what I mean? But with this project, there was the pressure to render them accurately and portray them accurately. And I went through a lot of iterations leading into this, before I actually completed one, just destroying canvases, trying to get it right. And so once I got in that groove, it's kind of like hitting. It's like once you get in that groove, you don't want a day off. Like you hate
Mm.
days off, and it's like, so once I got in that groove, I was going around the clock, because I knew this project needed that. It needed that work. You know what I mean? My practice needed to mimic the work that these guys put in. And so if my practice could mimic that, I knew that, and then I could output something that was to the best of my abilities. And so that's really what I wanted to deliver. So it was a really powerful project.
Who would you say in that research you learned the most about?
That's a good question. Um, it's a good question. I thought Monte Irvin was a very interesting story. Very interesting. Everything that he went through, he was the guy that was picked to, break the color barrier, but with injuries and all these
Mm.
other things that came into play, um, and a lot of these guys serving in the military,
Yep.
during World War II and then coming back. I thought his story was very interesting
Mm.
because Jackie Robinson has a day for him,
Yep.
and it's Jackie Robinson has, this whole thing around him, deservedly so. And I always thought to myself, like, how does Monty feel? Because not to that magnitude, but to have a career like mine where it kind of fell short because of injuries and different things. I kind of resonated with that. It's
Mhm.
like that's something that deep down will never subside in you. What could have been, or what should have been, with the injuries and things like that. So his story was very, very fascinating. They were all fascinating because you go through the numbers. The numbers they put up were ridiculous. It wasn't. I don't think people understand how good these guys were numbers wise, purely numbers wise. And then
Right.
you look down and you start to like unpack it. And it's like, well, how good they were at other sports,
Yep.
how serving in the military. And then that's not even including all the stuff they had to deal with the racism and all that stuff. And they were just putting up astronomical numbers. And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
It's extremely fascinating. And it's interesting that you mentioned Monte Irvin because, in some ways, Monte Irvin, like you said, through injury, through age, even a little bit through temperament, um, was not the first person to break the color barrier. It was Jackie. But the interesting thing about Monty was that he did get to cross over and play, obviously, in the integrated Major League Baseball. What do you think of someone like Josh? Josh is the only, I think, person that you painted of the six, and we'll go through the six, but Josh is the only one that actually never got to play an integrated ball because he passed away a couple months, obviously at a young age, but a couple months before Jackie broke the barrier.
Very fascinating story. And so with his card, I particularly left the background blank. And so every other card, there's some like hidden messages and some statistics
Mm,
somewhere hidden throughout. I specifically left his blank because there is this lore to him. There is this like it's almost like Greek mythology to him. And I didn't want to. You don't want to. I didn't want to like put him in a box or numbers or and I wanted it to be open ended because his story is so intricate and layered and complicated. Um, and it was a really sad story, very,
mm,
very sad story.
mm.
I actually ended up repainting one just for the museum. It wasn't in the collection. that was more. Um, there was more depth to it because of this. Like I really resonated with his story. As someone who struggles a lot, or with mental illness and the things that you go through mentally, I just wondered what he went through in those times. And so he was a very fascinating and very sad story.
I agree. I often wonder if, you know, even with just kind of what we know today in modern medicine and way people can handle, because Josh had a brain tumor.
That's right.
And so it was one of those things where, um, some of the stuff that they would just label as just being sporadic actually had a reason, and people just didn't know. And
Right.
so his story is fascinating, and one that I would wonder. Obviously, he did what he did, and as of the time we're speaking today, he is now the all-time Major League Baseball batting average leader. He leads in 3 major categories now because of Negro League stat integration. But a fascinating. I want to make sure I get all 6 of them right. So we've already talked a little bit about Monte and Josh, but there are also Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, Willie Mays, and Larry Doby, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So you mentioned on the Josh portrait, and we can talk about how you ultimately came to laying out the images, because people that see the images just see them on a picture or on a screen. Will see kind of a really in-depth facial portrait with a lot of emotion in it, and they'll also see the Negro League hats that they're wearing. And you mentioned some background in some, but how did you approach? Did you go through iterations where it was different body lengths or different uniform sizes? Because settling, I think, on just the real portrait of their faces and the emotion that you see in those for each of them really, I think, tells the story.
Yeah, I went through a lot of iterations, tons. I'm looking at a pile of canvases right now to get that right. Uh, my ability to depict emotion through a portrait is natural. I can't explain to you how I do it. It just happens. It's like hitting, honestly. I can't teach. I can teach you how to hit. It's just it's natural. But at the same time, when I was laying these out, um, my medium is charcoal and it's very finicky sometimes because I use my finger. You might get some oil on your fingers. You might have some water on your fingers. So it's a very finicky material to work with. And at the same time, we were on tight deadlines. And so basically I was creating something I've never done before. That was having to create portraits and then digitize them. Sorry, we still have trains
Oh no, it's all good.
out here. Um, and so I was having to digitize them.
Wow.
So the backgrounds I did digitally. So I had to scan the portraits and then do the backgrounds digitally, which was a whole other process, set several hours per card to get right. And so it was very challenging. There's a lot of mess ups. I think the only one I really got right on the first try was Jackie, because I have worked with him before and it was such it's a familiar face,
Okay.
and that was probably the one that I nailed the first time. The other ones were grueling, especially because off of the reference images you're looking at, they're very pixelated, and so you're gonna have to kind of really get it right and look at so many different images to go through them and get it right.
Well, they look phenomenal, my man. We'll post some on the screen for people to see, but they look amazing.
Thank you.
And something else that happened in this journey is honestly the first stop of a couple as we go towards Rickwood was last weekend or last week. You went to Kansas City, the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame. You were with my man Bob Kendrick,
Yeah.
and you unveiled the Satchel Paige card in Kansas City. Now, and again, I saw like a photo of the card beforehand, but what was taken back for me was the size and the weight. Now, when you work on it, you don't do that
No.
massive size. Okay, they
No.
just kind of blew that up, right? Because it was 8,000 pounds. It was
Yeah.
massive. How was that experience being at the Negro League Museum, debuting the Satchel Paige card, and seeing so many people that were close to this project and close, obviously, to the legacy of Satchel Paige, like Bob, really take it in and appreciate it because it looked amazing.
At first, it was nerve-wracking. Be honest with you, when something's that big, you start to wonder what people are going to see in it.
Right.
But man, it was a testament to the process, to be honest with you, because the canvases I painted on were 24 inches by 30 inches. Okay, so they were big, but not too big because I had to scan them. And so we did an incredible job with the scan to get the details to be able to be sized down to fit in 3.5 by 2.5 inch cards to fit, and then also fit in 24-foot by 16-foot cards. And so that's a testament to the process. But then, to see everybody there and celebrate it was really special. Satchel's daughter was there. That was also nerve-wracking,
Just want to make sure she likes it. Like first, you saw it, right? You saw it beforehand, right? I want no surprises.
Yep, and she was, she really loved it, and that meant a lot. That meant a lot. And so it was really special. It was amazing. It was an amazing event, and to be able to have that many people just show up and a diverse range of people from the front office in Kansas City to the Urban Youth Academy, to media, to local media, national media. It was a really special day.
Was this your first card? Was this your first card for Topps?
Yeah, my first card, yeah.
All right, so let me ask this. This is a fun one. Shake it out. Because I think just by talking to you right now, and I think I know the answer to this question. But do you own a Micah Johnson baseball rookie card?
It's so funny. I do.
You do? I was going to guess no. I was going to guess you're like, nah, it's not my style.
But not by chance. I mean, I think I just had one and the only reason why I know I do is because I saw it at my mom's house.
That's crazy.
In some obscure place, probably where it shouldn't be. It was in the medicine cabinet or something. I just happened to see it,
That's gotta be a surreal moment though. When you are playing, you're playing, but then you realize, because it's I'm sure when you're playing and you're grinding and you're trying to obviously achieve your goals in baseball, it's kind of in the back of your mind, oh, yo, I might be on a baseball card, but it's not front of mind. So when you saw your first baseball card, did you how did that feel? Did you freak out?
No, man. I'm such a I don't relish in the moment. I just keep it moving, to be honest with you, and just keep working. Because baseball cards are cool until you got to flip them over and look at your stats, and so you got to put up numbers. And so, but this project I did in particular, I did sit back and appreciate the work. Yeah.
Why so? Because your mentality is one to keep going. Why was this so special for you to be let me just take this all in?
I think it's just age and learning. I've done some amazing things and been very fortunate to do some amazing things in this life. And a lot of those times, time goes by so fast. And it's I understand the mentality, and I'm naturally that way, where you just want to keep working. And what's the next job? Let's do the next job. And the job there really is no end to the job.
Right.
But at this point, I was like, let me just sit back and enjoy this, because I knew how hard I worked on this. I knew that in the past, during my baseball career, I didn't do that. And so some memories start to fade. And so I'm like, let me just enjoy this moment, because I did put the work in to awesome. Really enjoy it. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's great too. And it should. I'm also of the age now where I have a lot of memories. And one of the things I always kick myself about is not journaling. I'm like, damn, I should have journaled. While I was going through this period of life, this 4 or 5 year, whenever it was, I'm like, man, I should have wrote that stuff down. Because you're right. You're good. Some of it's gonna fade. You'll remember some stuff. But if you were journaling or remembering it, or figure, now we have video to kind of remember certain things. But all right, so is it? Let me ask this, and we'll go back after this. But that first baseball card moment, or something of that equivalent, that first moment when you felt like you made it in the major leagues, you got the call or something like that. How does that compare to years later seeing your artwork getting the call on Times Magazine? That's got to be are they similar? Are they different? Big accomplishments? getting that call or seeing your character Aku on the cover of Time magazine?
It's a good question. I think the biggest difference is in baseball, the steps, right? Like since you're 3 years old, the highest level is Major League Baseball. And okay, there's steps. As you get older, the steps to get there. So once you reach the major leagues, you did the thing, right? So how you can go perform and do Hall of Fame, all that fun stuff. But in this world of the art world, I don't know things. Anything is possible, right? Like you don't know. There isn't a major league in the art world. There's just
I
things
would
you.
consider where you are in the major leagues.
Oh, I don't think so.
I would consider that. I would say.
No, I don't think there ever. I don't think there ever is. I think because it's just always these new things. You could have asked me back then, and when I did a time cover, what's next? I'm like, I don't. I'm just gonna keep practicing and getting better. And now you do the tops thing, and now that's an amazing accomplishment. And then you do this next thing, and so it's a much different a feeling. You don't when you made it to the major leagues. When I made my debut, it was like a sigh of relief. Like you did it. No matter what you did in your career in the major leagues, something I wanted to do since I was 3, and there was tons of people that helped me along the way. We got to celebrate that accomplishment. With this, it just seems like there's all kind of accomplishments. Whenever the people are recognizing your art or appreciating art, that's accomplishment in itself. There's a million artists in this world, millions of artists in this world who don't get the opportunity for the world to look at their art or see their art. There's millions more talented than I am. So just even that's the MLB level. It's just people just seeing your art, and I think that's what I'm very grateful for.
You said something that stood out to me just now because it's something that's echoed by a lot of folks. When they get to the major leagues, obviously their excitement, but there's this overwhelmingly feeling of like relief. Because I don't know what it's like to grind through the minor leagues, you know what I mean, or be grinding and stuff. But I think that's an interesting reflection that a lot of people are like, yo, when I got there, I was excited, but more than anything, I just felt like relieved to get there. That's crazy.
It was a lot of relief, man. A lot of relief. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Very
But
few
like sense of gratitude and like gratification as well, right? Like obviously you still got a lot of work to do, but
yeah. Just very few professions in this world you do from a young age on. Like like to be a professional athlete, you have to start from a very young age.
Yep.
And so your whole life, while you're young, you kind of sacrifice your childhood for that dream. That doesn't really happen in any other profession. So it's a very unique job.
So that's a perfect segue. Take me back to that young age. Take me back to the beginning. How'd you fall in love with baseball? At what age did you realize that this was a game that you were going to play?
I was actually reading one of my baby books the other day because I'm working on another project. And my mom had wrote down when I was like 2 or I can't remember, it was like 2.5 or something, 3. I could sit and watch 9 innings, and I had like 6 favorite players. And then as when I was obsessed with it from that very young age. And that never wavered, never.
Wow.
When I was young, I played baseball every day. I didn't that was playing to me. I didn't want to play with like Legos and things. It was go outside and play baseball. My mom, hit me ground balls with a tennis racket. That's all. I loved it more than anything.
And this was in Indiana growing up. Who were the 6? Who were your guys growing up? Who'd you really like growing
Brian
up?
Brian McRae was my guy. I'm trying to think. Brant Brown.
Okay.
Brant Brown used to wear his socks up, and so I would wear my socks like Brant Brown when I was little. Who else was there?
Those are deep cuts. Those are like the normals. Brian McRae is a deep cut. I remember his Kansas City Royals cards.
Yeah, it wasn't like the big name. I was just like whatever I liked about them. Guys that played hard and certain guys. Ryan Sandberg, obviously, guys that stuck out to me. I liked.
So when did you realize that not only did you enjoy playing and you were obsessed with playing, but when did you realize, like, yo, I'm actually good? Like, I'm good at this game. I'm better than my peers, per se.
Man, my mindset is I'm the best at everything I do, man. That's my mindset. So
Even today.
yeah, man, like it's just what it is.
Mhm.
So like I never thought that I wasn't that good at it. Like it was
And you,
never
yeah.
I always thought I was really good.
And so, all right, so let me ask this in this way. When did other people think that you were as good as you thought you were? When did you realize, like, oh, I can actually continue playing and transition and, maybe even get drafted?
Oh, man, I don't know. I just did it. Like I just do it.
I
Like
get it. I get it.
I never worried about what other people thought.
Interesting.
I just forced them to think that I was good because of how I prepared and how I practiced. I went back to my high school recently, this past weekend to see a game. I haven't been back in 15 years. And some guy came up to me, he was like, one of the old coaches, and he was like, a lot of people used to talk about how cocky you were, and I always would tell him like he's cocky because he works harder than any of your kids. And
Yeah.
so in my mindset, and it's relevant to my art career today, I
Mhm.
work extremely hard,
Mhm.
and I wasn't ever cocky because of my abilities. I was cocky or confident because of my work.
Mhm.
So I would hit every single day by myself, every day.
Mhm.
I would I'd have free periods in high school. I wouldn't go to Chipotle and eat. I would go hit in the cage by myself every day. And so it's a confidence that I have in my preparation, not in my abilities. It's in the preparation that you are ready. And it's the same thing applied to this project. You have to have confidence in a project like this when you're dealing with corporations like Fanatics, when you're dealing with corporations like Fox, when you're dealing with corporations like MLB and the legacy of these players. You're never going to be the best artist or the best
Mhm.
baseball player. You never will. And you never will be as good as they could have picked a million other people better than me at art. So you got to be confident in preparation.
Mhm.
Was I prepared going into this? Have I been practicing? Have I been, showing up in on the canvas continuously? You know what I mean? If I wasn't prepared, if I wasn't doing those things, then I wouldn't have been ready. You would have seen underconfidence in the work. It would have shown through. So it's my thing. It's just always be prepared, and then and your confidence will come from that, not from the results.
Good point. Take me back to the youth Indiana days, and even like I always like to ask players that have made it to the levels that you made it. When you were growing up playing baseball, um, did you play with other black and brown kids? You were in Indiana. So, or was it more of a isolated experience? Well, like you looking around and saying, I'm the only black dude out here. And did that even have an impact on the way you played the game?
Numbers are always minimal. There were a few, but the numbers were always minimal.
Mhm.
At the same time, it's an expensive sport.
Mhm.
Even back then, it was hard to get into the realm of how costly it was.
Mhm.
We couldn't afford to play. My
Mm.
dad had to figure out ways to. I think it was like $1,100 for summer ball.
Mm.
Um, and so there was a few players, but that's the reality of it. It was just an expensive sport to play, and you had to be really good. This is my thing. It's like as a black baseball player, you can't be mediocre. Like the game doesn't allow you to be mediocre. You have to be great. Like you have to be, and that's a lot of pressure. And because of my abilities, I had opportunities that maybe other kids did not have, that looked like me, um, who were good, who were very good and had abilities. Um, and I think that's kind of where you start to see the numbers drop off. Is some kids might have some abilities, but they can't really afford it, so no one's really going to invest in that. You know what I mean? And that's the tough position to be in because you don't know when they'll develop or how to develop those without having to put that money up.
As a player, because you're just playing, like you're doing the best you can. Like you said, you're working as hard as you can to get the results that you want. Does that stand in the back of your mind? What you just said, like as a black player, I have to perform. Is that something you carry with you, not just from little league to high school, all the way up to your career?
Yeah, I carry it to this day. I carry it to this
Mm.
day. Uh, it's the reality of the world. Now I don't have, well, I don't have, I'm not going to sit here and wish a magic ball that it'd be different, because we know, like, why are you going to wish something that, why sit here and have resentment towards how the world works as a whole? But that is the reality. And I knew that that dawned on me. Whether, look, I think it's a chip that I carry that keeps me going, you
Mm.
know. Uh,
Fuel.
yeah, you got to do something. You got to keep going. You got to do something, And I talked about this in my speech at the museum. Is black players in baseball, you got to go to another level. You got to force them to recognize your game. Um, that also could be applied to low round draft picks. It doesn't have to be black.
You're a ninth round draft pick, right?
Yeah, and that's considered
Yeah.
low. When you think about the prospect totem pole.
Mm.
Uh, but it's something I've noticed too. It's something I've noticed. It's just you got to go to another level. You got to go
Mm.
to another level. And no one's ever going to sit here and say, "Well, man, this person's good job, Micah. You're doing a good job." It's like, what's next? That's always going to be, what are you going to do next? What have you done lately? And so my first year in pro ball, I did rookie ball. Hit like 280, whatever. I didn't think it was good. Sent me to low A. And going into that year, I said, I got to go to another level. I got to do something that nobody has seen before. And so
Mm.
that's when I hit, whatever I hit, 330, whatever, stole 84 bases, called me up to double A, and it was for the playoffs, same mentality. I got to do something. Ended up winning MVP of the playoffs in double A my first year. And it was like that mentality is what got me to the big leagues. And so you could use it as an advantage to yourself and say, I'm going to just go to another level on them.
What? So you wind up playing baseball in college.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a question? And to your credit, congratulations! I know you went back and got your degree from Indiana.
Not yet.
I know
I'm
you're
a
doing
few
it now.
credits,
Oh
away.
wow!
I did go
Hey,
back. I went back, but
yeah,
I'm
spoiler alerts. Spoiler
still
alert.
short. Still
It's
a
on
few
the
credits
way.
short. Yeah.
Was those decisions, because obviously you were a highly talented high school player, was it ever a decision for you about going to college versus a lot of kids today are faced this, do I just go pro immediately or do I go to college? You actually played in college. The way the system works now, there's a lot of benefits and advantages. I mean, you didn't have NIL, you didn't have kind of a shrinking draft pool, but what do you think about the decision to go to college, and was that the best decision for you?
Didn't really have an option. I mean, I tore my labrum my senior year of high school. I missed my senior year.
Oh, okay.
So I really didn't have an option. But for overall speaking, I think if a kid has a chance to go pro early, I would go, because the opportunities when you're young in the professional baseball, you're going to have a longer leash and years to prove yourself and develop. And there's a premium on being young in the minor leagues. 18, 19 years old in A ball. Perform if you're ready. So I look at that, and you could always go back. They pay for your college. So they pay for all 4 years. So that's in the contract. So you can always go back and get your degree. Who just did that? Dexter Fowler just went back and got his degree. They motivated me to get mine.
You got look. Spoiler alert! It's coming. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way you are now in the art world, and the imagery and the dream that your character presents for young black kids all over the world, you are steeped in many ways, and connected to culture, just by the nature of what your brand has presented. So when you look at that and you look at baseball, you know where I'm going with this. How do we get even more of our young black brothers and sisters to gravitate towards the game?
So it's a good question. And I think it starts not with the kids, or maybe it does, but baseball's a generational sport. The love of the game is passed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's how it was for a very long time. Um, you know, my dad, for example, works all the time, and it was very strict, would allow me to miss for school on opening day, and he would skip work, and we sit there and watch the Cubs opening day,
Nice.
eat our hot dogs, every year. So it's that bond with my dad, you know, made me fall in love with the game. His grandfather loved baseball. They're from down in Arkansas. They're playing baseball. So it's a thing that's passed down from generations. So from a baseball perspective and how I think about my character and the things that I create and how I can, because I really want to see baseball thrive, particularly in the Black community because of the history of the game in the Black community, is to focus on that connection, that generational connection, creating a shared experience with a parent and their kids. That's where I think the game has a big opportunity to connect and to grow is in that. Not particularly. I think what Del Matthews and Tony Regans are doing with the youth development program is amazing. They are producing stars and they're giving opportunities to players who wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise to be around big league coaching and exposure. And that program is amazing. But then you think about the casual fans who aren't playing but that want to love the game, how it used to be. The
Yep.
Negro Leagues. Let's talk about the Negro Leagues for a second. It was booming business.
Yep.
It was booming business. It wasn't because everybody was playing baseball. It's because they were fans of the game. They were coming to the stadiums. It was what was talked about. And I think that's the big thing and the big opportunity, that I would love to kind of really insert myself in from a creative perspective. And this is one of the projects, I hope does that, is creating that shared experience. A card is a shared experience. It's a shared experience people can have with their kids. A father or a mother, whoever, grandparent can buy these cards and share it with their children. That's a shared experience. That might get them into the game. And I think that opportunities like that is what will continue to kind of grow and foster the game within that community.
No, I think you're exactly right. This, while you're even talking about it, and I've heard the exactly what you're saying. You're exactly right in regards to how the game is exposed to young people, right? And what that means. It's interesting because I think the challenge that all of us have to have when we're looking at this is just like you were saying, as a realist, you have to understand what the current dynamic of a Black family is, and all of our families, not just be stereotypical. The family in 2024 is different than you know the stereotypical thought about generational family of yesteryear. And what I mean by that is, I think you're exactly right on the exposure part. I think Major League Baseball has to start to look at, like all of us, have to start to look at, okay, how do we expose our young people to the game when the actual dynamics of it may not be a traditional, grandfather to grandson type situation? How do we get that exposure when the kind of ecosystem, the family ecosystem, has changed quite a bit? And it's not impossible, because I think we see it in basketball and we see it in football. They're still dealing with the same. It's not as historic, right? Because the history of those games isn't as deep and as long as the history of baseball. But it's interesting to see from, like, a, if you will, a micro social work standpoint, when we're looking at what the realities is of what a family looks like in 2024. How do we make that exposure? And I often think about that because I think you're exactly right. I think exposure to the game and having young people not only learn about the game, learn the history of the game, learn that, it's actually a cool game to play. You can put swag to it, like you can put swag to all the other sports. Really, really make it exciting. And I think you're onto something, man, because it is, and it's also about giving back, like the stuff that you're doing and the stuff that we see other players do through, like, Players Alliance, and like you said, MLB development. It could change a kid's world to see a Hunter Green or a Marcus Stroman, or a Mookie Betts, or even somebody coming up in the minor leagues like a Tamar Johnson or James Wood do their thing, and just give them a high five. It really changes, like, your perspective of how cool, like, how much harder you want to go. You know what I mean?
I think you're spot on about the society thing. Taking a step back, there is like, there's like, let's take the major sports in the United States, right? Let's take football, right? Football is going to be good for a long time because of the dynamic they have with uh, fantasy football,
Yep.
with DraftKings, FanDuel, like that experience, and it's once a week, whatever. For the most part, once a week, right? To tap in, tune in, right? And so it's always going to be on in the fall, that,
Yep.
right? And so the fandom, they don't have to necessarily. That's their identity. Everybody, for the most part, America is going to get a fantasy football league going each year, and it's building that camaraderie.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Basketball has a culture around it where it's a lot around the content. When you think about the
Yep.
basketball league, and you have tons of talented content creators creating content around the game. Whether that's the fashion fits, and
Yep.
that's uh, what these players are wearing, what highlights being shared and talked about. And it's that dynamic energy. Baseball, I believe, the identity for that is the family unit,
Yep.
the community unit. Historically, that's what it
Yep.
always
Nope.
was,
Yep. And rightfully
and
so. Rightfully
that's
so.
right. And so, black, white, green, or blue, it doesn't matter to me. That is the identity, right? It's
Mhm.
like around family, because whether you have a son, daughter, doesn't matter. When you foster that relationship, tossing the ball in the backyard, t-ball, that's what the game was built on. And so, to reach that younger audience, it gotta double down on that, on the family unit,
Yep.
on what it means to be a family. And it doesn't have to be traditional, because
Yeah.
that's not how family units are anymore. Of
It looks
what a
so different. Yeah,
traditional,
it
they
just
look,
looks so
everybody
different. So I
family's
think,
different. That's right.
and the funny part is, and I know we're coming close on time, so and I'm having a great time. I want to make sure that we get some last second stuff in, but I did want to say the interesting thing about exactly what you said is that I think people have such short term memories in a sense that they look at the NBA or the NFL today. Like they look at it as it's constituted now and be like, oh man, that's where we need to be. That's like, like you said, the fits of the NBA, it's like a whole fashion fit thing. The NBA went kicking and screaming, like kicking and screaming to where we are now with culture. And so they were very happy with like Magic Johnson when he was coming. When Iverson and Jermaine O'Neal and Steven Jackson, when they were instituting the dress code, it
Dress
was
code.
because they were kicking and screaming that they didn't want that element of culture in the game. And once they ultimately embraced it, and they had to embrace it because the players were so good, right? Once they ultimately embraced what Stephon Marbury was bringing and Iverson was bringing and all of that, now you look at it today like, oh, it was always there. It was not always there, and I feel like there's a element to what we're seeing right now in baseball, what we're starting to see right now in baseball with what the young kids are having the swag and what Acuna and Jazz and all these guys are doing in MLB the show and all the and tops and the cards. They're starting to see. I think we're at a point now where we're starting to see uh, the resistance like we saw to culture coming in the NBA because there's this old guard that's like get off my lawn with some of the younger kids, but they're going to be so good. Like and it's interesting because it's not just along racial lines. The NBA was a little bit more along racial lines, but this you see 19-year-old white kids with just as much swag because that's what they listen to. That's who they accustomed to. And I think that MLB and all of baseball is going to have to start dealing with how you kind of embrace that in a way to move it to the future, the next generation. Um, Last thing I'll ask about the cards, we'll have a little bit of fun, but how would you, as the artist of this collection, how do you um kind of in a way, eh, you know, instruct is probably not the best word, but how do you transfer that knowledge, education through your art? Like, what do you want the younger generation, the next generation to get through seeing your work in this project? What do you want the young kids to see it and start to reflect on?
What I found with art is that it's every kids resonate with it. I do a backpack giveaway each year, and last year I donated 5,000 backpacks to kids across the country. I went to go speak to them, and I would show them my art, and that really resonated with the majority of the kids, which I was surprised. I thought they would care about my sports background and all that, but it was like the art. And so I look at this project as an opportunity to be kind of I'm just a conduit to really show kids that you could do multiple things and you can be creative. Um, and I really feel like the kids are going to resonate with that in a way, that's very powerful to them, that maybe they ain't going to go draw some players, maybe they want to go uh, try to draw Aku, who knows what this might inspire them to do. But I think every kid, especially nowadays, is creative, and it's just going to give them, hopefully that unique lens at baseball where it's not this, 9 inning game and all this. It's going to be like, oh no, this is cool, really on that level of simplicity.
All right, shake it out. We're gonna do some rapid fire, and we're gonna get you out of here. So this will be a little
Let's
bit
do
of
it.
all over the place, but let's have some fun with it. First question: if Aku was a baseball player, what position would he play?
Second base. He's little.
He's little.
Yeah.
He's little. Lefty or righty? Do we know?
He's yeah, I do know. Throws right-handed, bats right-handed.
Okay. Um, if you were to
He is a
recommend,
baseball fan, by the way. I will
he's a
note.
baseball fan, is he?
Yes, yes. You will see. He does a big baseball fan.
That's awesome. Um, in your playing days, was there a pitcher that you found was just incredibly hard to deal with? Who was the hardest you had to deal with when you stepped in the batter's box?
Oh, anybody throwing a front door two seam. Any right-hander throwing a front door two seam. I didn't want anything to do with that.
I like it. If you were to recommend one book for everybody in the world to read, what book could that be?
It's a good question. Not a big reader. The Aku book.
Fair enough. I'll take it. I love this question. If you were to face any pitcher throughout history, so any pitcher living or dead, you at your best get to step in the box and face him. Who do you face and why?
It's a good question.
I do my research, Mike. I'm trying. I'm trying to make it happen for us.
It's a good question. Not anybody in recent. They throw too hard now.
You can go through anyone. You want me to give you? I can tell you who most people would say. There's two that most people say.
Who they say?
Most people say either Satchel Paige or Bob Gibson. They're masochists. That's what they are.
I want to get a hit, man. I'm trying to see a righty throw a little two seam, 89-mile-per-hour two seam, man. That's all I want, man.
No, you'll
Running
take
away
like
from me, slap it the other way. That's all
You'll take a Greg Maddux or someone like that.
No, he was throwing the front door two seams, man. No, I need someone who likes to throw that two seam run off the plate. They don't do it anymore because they throw too hard. But something like that, man.
You can only listen to one artist for the rest, like one musical artist. Who do you listen to? The whole catalog. You get the whole catalog of one artist.
Man, that's another good question, man.
These are the rapid fire questions. I'm trying to go easy on you.
Probably Louis Armstrong, man.
I like it. I took you as a Prince fan. Are you a Prince fan at all? No.
No.
I was thinking maybe possibly. But no, Louis
no.
Armstrong's that's deep, man. That's deep.
Yeah, probably Louis Armstrong, man.
All right, man. Well, look, I'm gonna leave it here. This is the last question, Micah. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I ever received. Probably to protect your dreams. don't share your dreams with everybody. Um, because I think people can impose their perspectives on your life without knowing all the details, and that could heavily influence your path and your direction. I think you got to figure it out on your own, and you're best served that way because you will find uh, a lot more answers in the failures in the process than anybody can really give you. So I would say protect your dreams. Don't share it with everybody. Don't share what you know everything that you're doing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I am going to share is this podcast. We're going to have to leave it there. Micah Johnson, the project is Major League Baseball's Field of Dreams game. It's happening on June 20th. Road to Rickwood. This is Tops, and they've got 6 amazing cards rendered by Micah himself of Negro League legends. I think the Satchel Paige card is out now. You can go check that out. But there are 5 more coming. Wonderful displays. Mike is going to be at I believe, some stadiums moving forward as we go there. And then, are you going to be in Rickwood? Are you going to be
Of
in?
course, of
He's going to be
course.
at Rickwood as well. So make sure you follow him on all he's doing, not just with this project, but he has opened up an amazing world of creativity and art, especially for young Black families, characters, people to go follow. It truly is amazing. So we'll leave it there. We'll be right back after this.